Hello, happy Monday or Tuesday, whenever you're watching this. Hope your week is going well. Here's the solutions for the review 6.8 to 6.8.5. If you have not yet done the homework, please stop the video, try the homework first, do everything on here the best of your ability, then come back and go to the problems that you didn't understand. There's an answer key included here. It's on the last page of the homework, so you can always check your work or check your answers. If you got them wrong, then in this video you can fast forward to the place that you need to be, and you don't have to watch the whole thing. Please do not just copy this. Please, 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 I'm begging you, do not just copy this. Find the positive geometric mean between 12 and 15. I'm going to show you two ways to do this. You can do whichever way you choose. I like this way. Geometric mean is when you say that number, that geometric mean, x squared equals the product of those two, 12 times 15. X squared equals 12 times 15 is 180. When we square root both sides, plus or minus square root of 180, but this did say positive geometric mean, so I'm going to lose the plus or minus, and then square root of 180 is square root 36, square root 5, x is 6, square root 5. The other way to solve this problem goes back to Math 1, where you wrote these 12, comma, something, comma, 15. Then we had to divide these guys. We had to do the last one divided by the first one, so we came over to the side and we did 15 divided by 12. We can simplify that. 15 divided by 12 is, oh gosh, we can divide by 3. That's going to give us a 5. Divide by 3. Let's try again. Divide by 3. 5 fourths. There we go. 5 fourths. Then, because there were two changes or two jumps here, we have to do the square root of that. And the square root of 5 fourths would be square root 5 over 2. Square root 5 over square root 4, which is 2. That's the common ratio. So that's what you're multiplying by. We're going to times by square root 5 over 2. Then if we come over to the side and we do 12 times square root 5 over 2, the 12 and the 2 cancel, leaves us 6. When we multiply that, we get 6 square root 5. There's the geometric mean. Lots of kind of scattered work over here. I think it's much easier, at least for me it is, to go through this route. So that's the route that I'm going to use for this next problem. Positive geometric mean between 10 and 6. X squared equals 10 times 6. X squared is 60. X is plus or minus the square root of 60. We want the positive one, so I'm going to lose the plus or minus. 60 is 4 times 15, and that leaves us 2 square root 15. Get the answer right away with that method. Looking at this next one, we're going to cross multiply to solve here. 2x equals 30. Divide out the 2. X is 15. Looking at the next one, again, cross multiply. Please be very careful. You distribute that 9 through to both pieces here. 9 times an x plus 1 equals, there's 10x. 9x plus 9 equals 10x. I'm going to subtract the 9x from both sides. X equals 9. Perfect. Same thing over here. Please be sure to cross multiply and distribute through. So this would be 2x and then a 12. Don't forget to multiply that 6 by the 2. So 2x plus a 12 equals 4x plus 4. I'm going to subtract the 2x. Now I'm going to subtract a 4. And then divide out the 2. X does equal 4. Look at these next one, these altitude to the hypotenuse theorems. All right, we have something on the altitude. So this is the altitude formula. Altitude squared equals piece of the hypotenuse times the other piece of the hypotenuse. The altitude is x, so x squared equals, all right, one piece of the hypotenuse is 6 times the other piece of the hypotenuse. They don't tell us that right off the bat. They do tell us the whole thing is 14 though. 14 minus that 6 gives us an 8 right here. So we have 6 times 8. X squared is 48. Square root both sides. Lose the plus or minus because we're talking about a side length here. And square root 48 is square root 16, square root 3. X is 4 square root 3. I realize I'm going fast. If you had trouble on these, please rewind, listen to it again, or pause along the line so that you can jot the correct answer down. This one, we have something on a leg, nothing on the altitude here, so we're going to use the leg formula. Leg squared equals the whole hypotenuse times the adjacent piece of the hypotenuse. So here's our leg squared, x squared, whole hypotenuse, 3 plus 9, 12. The adjacent piece, it's one of these. It's either the 3 or the 9. It's one of the pieces of the hypotenuse. And we want the piece that's next to the leg that we used. The 9 is right up next to the x, so that 9 goes here. We have x squared equals 108. X is then 108. Square root 36, square root 3. 6 square root 3. Next one, we have an altitude again, so we're going to use the altitude formula. Altitude squared equals piece times piece. Okay, altitude squared, 8 squared equals one piece of the hypotenuse, 4, times another piece, x. Oops, didn't need that parentheses there. That's all right. We'll do that. We have 64 equals 4x. Divide out the 4. X is 16. That one was nice. Whoops. Oh, joy. Here's some more altitude to the hypotenuse. I love these. All right, here we go. Let's see, leg or altitude. This is a leg. So leg squared equals whole hypotenuse times the adjacent piece. Leg squared, 6 squared equals whole hypotenuse. Oh boy, whole hypotenuse is all of that. That's x plus 5 times the adjacent piece, which is an x. We have to distribute this x through. When we have an x squared, we want to pull everything over to one side and set one side equal to 0. So I'm going to minus 36. 0 equals x squared plus 5x minus 36. Now we can factor multiply to be negative 36, add up to be a 5. It's got to be a plus 9 and a minus 4. This gives us two solutions then, x equals negative 9 or x equals 4. X can't be negative, so this one's out, and x is just 4. Looking at this next one, we have the altitude here. Altitude squared equals piece hypotenuse times piece of the hypotenuse. 4 square root 2 squared equals x times an 8. When you square this, you have to square both pieces. So 4 squared is 16 times a square root 2 squared, that's square root 4, which is 2. And 16 times 2 is 32. Divide out the 8, x is 4. This one we have a leg. Leg squared equals whole hypotenuse times adjacent piece. Leg's 10. Hypotenuse, whole thing, x plus 21. The adjacent piece is an x. 100 here, distribute through, x squared plus 21x. Set one side to 0, so we're going to subtract this 100. X squared plus 21x minus 100. Factor. Two numbers multiply to be negative 100, add up to be 21. It's 25 and a minus 4. That gives us x equals negative 25, or x equals 4. Can't be negative. X is 4. Next one. Leg squared equals the whole hypotenuse times the adjacent. Leg 8 squared equals the whole hypotenuse, x plus 2, times the adjacent piece. Adjacent piece this time is the one next to the 8, that's the 2. We have 64 equals, distribute the 2 through, 2x plus 4. Now in this case, we do not have an x squared. So don't move everything to one side. Don't look for that 0. Just go ahead and solve like normal. And let's subtract that 4. 60 equals 2x. Divide out the 2. And x is 30. Next one, here's another leg one. Got something on the leg. Okay, the leg, x squared equals the whole hypotenuse, 9 times the adjacent piece, 3. X squared is 27. So x is plus or minus square root 27. 27 is 9 times 3. So we have x is 3 square root 3. Last one of these guys, I think. Let me check. Yes. Okay, this is a leg. Leg squared equals whole hypotenuse times the adjacent piece. Leg squared. That's this whole thing, x plus 4 squared equals the whole hypotenuse, 12, times the adjacent piece, 3. To get this x plus 4 squared, write it out. And then use FOIL. X times x, x squared. Outside, x times 4. Inside, 4 times x. Last, 4 times 4. Combine some like terms. Okay, we have an x squared, so we need to move everything to one side, so we get a 0 over here. We'll have x squared plus 8x. I'm going to minus a 36. 16 minus 36 is negative 20. Factor. Multiply to be negative 20. Add up to be an 8. That's a plus 10 and a minus 2. X is negative 10 or x is 2. This one's out. X is 2. Okay. Whew. All right, now for some 30, 60, 90s and 45, 45, 90s. We have 30, 60, 90 here, and this is on the hypotenuse. To get from the hypotenuse back to the short leg, we're going to divide by 2. That makes this 10. Okay. Video froze. I don't know if you can still hear me. This is going to be part 1. There'll be a part 2 for this. Sorry.